Okay, hello everyone joining me this morning for this live stream. So I thought it would be fun to play around with some watercolors this morning. So we're going to do this watercolor galaxy type background with a nice simple silhouette in front of it. So I think I've got the reference photo up there for you guys. So I'm just going to run through my supplies real quickly. I've got my M-gram watercolors here, but you can use whatever watercolors you have. And the fun thing with this type of background that we're going to do is you can use whatever colors that you want. Just be mindful of if you're mixing like oranges and blues that you're going to get some muddy areas. So kind of be mindful of what colors you're using. I'm going to be using my Arches cold pressed watercolor block here, and this is a 7 by 10. I've got a glass of clean water, a glass for dirty water, and the dirty water one's hidden by the reference picture, but that's okay. And then I've got some brushes over here that I'm going to use. I've got my size 12, my size 4, and my size 8 silver black velvets and Neptune. And I really like these ones too. The main difference that you'll see between the silver black velvet and the Princeton Neptune is the tips. So the Princeton Neptune has a little bit wider of a tip here, and it doesn't come quite to a tip where the silver black velvet does. So I really like these if I'm doing more detailed pieces, and they also hold a lot of water each. So what I've gone ahead and done here is did my sketch out on some tracing paper so that we don't have to worry if we cover up our sketch that you've done on your watercolor block. So afterwards, once we've done our sky and everything, we'll go ahead and transfer this onto our paper. And I like to use these graphite papers, and I've got one in gray and one in white. And it just depends. If you've got a lighter area, you can go with the gray. If it's really dark and the gray won't show up, you can use the white one. All right. And then with that, I typically like to use like an embossing tool or something like that, but you can use a pen or a pencil or whatever you have. So I'm just going to jump right in, and I like to pick my colors out first. So I think for this background, I'm going to go for a more blue and pink type background. Now, you can do it a little more simple and sort of go like from here where you've got a lighter color and you're going up into a darker color. Or you can, play around and just throw some colors down and try to make some kind of galaxy. And I think that's what I'm going to do today. Just kind of, mix some colors around and see what we get. So I think for this, I'm going to just start putting some water on my palette. And I would suggest to pick, 3 or 4 colors to start with, and then you can always add them if you need to. Oh, good morning, EB. So nice to see you here. Are you traveling right now? I'm just picking my colors. So I'm thinking for this, I'm thinking like maybe some blues, but I always like to have a pop of color. So I've got these 2 pinks here, and this is the Daniel Smith Opera Rose, but that is not light fast. So I think I'm going to go for the Quinacridone Rose here. And this is just a really nice pink. And I think with the blues, it'll give us a really nice pop of color. Oh, you're driving now, so you're going to watch as you drive. Okay. That's exciting. I hope you're not driving. And watching this at the same time. So I'm going to rinse that off really well. And then I think I'm going to go for this cobalt teal. I love this color. This is one of my favorite colors from the M-gram paint line. Nope, the boyfriend is. Okay, that's good. That's good to know. At least you're being safe. So how long are you going to be away for? Oh, hi, Heather. So nice to see you here. Thank you for joining. Yay, watercolors. Yes. So I'm just picking out my colors right now. And I'm thinking like a blue kind of sky, but I picked the pink for like a pop of color in there. So this is, okay, so And I hope YouTube's not having any troubles this morning. I feel like it's freezing a little bit. So let me know if it's, you know, freezing up for you guys or how it's doing. We have pretty good internet here, so I don't know why sometimes it freezes up. I might now be able to watch because it keeps, oh, I might not be able to watch because it keeps cutting out. Not your end, it's mine. Okay. Because it did freeze up for a second for me. So what I'm going to do now is just, actually I'm going to take my pencil first. And I'm just going to the background down that far because we're going to cover it up with some gouache anyway. And I'm not making a straight line. I am doing a little bit of bumps here and there just for some variety in the ground. But that's about where I think I want it. Maybe, you know what, maybe it could go a little bit lower. I've kind of got it angled up, but that's fine. All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and just start wetting the background all above where I put that line in. And that line's going to get covered up with gouache anyway. And when we're doing like a wet on wet background like this, you really want to wet the background nicely, but give it time to sort of sink into the paper too. And that's why I love Arch's cold press paper for this technique, because it really does take a lot of water. And the more water that you put on your paper and the more time you let it sink in, the more time you'll have to play around with your paints. So if you're finding, you know, you have trouble when you're doing wet on wet because your paper's drying a little too fast, you probably just didn't take enough time to wet it thoroughly and like really let it sink in. So I go through and I wet it, you know, a few times and just really let that water sink in. And this is really going to help us with the time that we'll have to play with our paints. So what projects have you guys been working on lately? And I'm making sure I'm going right up to the edges too. And that's the nice thing with this block here, is I can paint right up to the edges and even over, and it's not going to affect the painting. Okay, and one thing I like to do to make sure that I've gotten all the areas with the water is I just tilt my paper a little bit and it'll show me if it's all shiny or not. And I want the paper to be shiny but not runny. So if I notice any water running, then I need to get rid of that because that's going to cause blooms and puddles in our piece. But if I tilt it and I notice, you know, that the water's staying where it is, it's soaking in nicely, it's all shiny, I've hit all the areas of the paper, then we're ready to start laying our color down. So I think I'm going to start with the pink here, and I'm just going to go in with the same brush, and I'm just going to sort of like lay it in this area, somewhere here, and we're going to do kind of a, I don't know, a funky-ish design. You can go from light to dark if you want, but I'm just going to tap in some color and kind of see what it does. That's the fun thing about, you know, watercolors. You can kind of just let it do what you want, or do what it wants to do, because it's watercolor, right? You can't really, you can control it to a certain extent. Then I'm going to rinse off really well. And I'm going to dab my brush off too. I have a little towel off to the side here, and I don't want to pick up too much water. I want mostly the color of the paint. And I'm going to start putting this in here too. And if some of the colors blend together, that's fine. And I'll pick up some more of that color there and just kind of drop it in where I see it. And the nice thing about, you know, wetting our paper is we still have time to play around. We can go back in after and, you know, brighten up any colors that we need to. So again, I'm going to tap off that brush and just pick up some of this phthalo blue. And I'm going to tap this into some areas too. And I'm going to pick some more of that up. And I'm really just laying this color down pretty much around it because I want to start getting into some darker colors too. And then we'll come back and put some more color in there for a pop of color. What brush type and size are you using? I am using Silver Black Velvet, and this is a number 12. I also really like the Princeton Neptune brushes, and I've got both of them out, just depending, you know, what I want. So I'm going to go right in with that Prussian blue now and start putting this on my edges, and I'm going to go right in. I want it to be nice and dark. And then we can go and darken that up even more. We can add some neutral tint or some black. But I want to kind of just get the base colors down. And then the fun part's going in and sort of like adding more intensity to them, letting them mix. If we want to add more colors. You just colored a coloring book yesterday. I did art with the Palettefull packs. Oh, okay. Did you get your September Palettefull pack? Is that the one you got? I saw we're getting some acrylic gouache in it. And I haven't got mine yet, but I'm excited to try that. Yes, okay. So again, I'm going back in with that pink. And I'm just going to let it, you know, mix and mingle a little bit with some of the other colors. So I'm going in more with the paint now rather than adding water to it. And you'll see it's not going as far. So this is where you can start to be a little bit more controlled in where you're laying down the color. And again, I'm tapping my brush off on my little rag here each time I do it. I've got a rag off to the side there, just so that I'm not picking up too much water with it. And if I need just a smidgen of water, I'll add that in. So I'm noticing I still need a little bit of flow at this time. It's not moving quite as much as I want. So I'm just adding a tiny little bit of water there with it. And I'm getting some more, and this is that cobalt teal color. I really love it. You also did your sketchbox artwork as well. That's nice. I haven't received my Palettefull packs or my Smart Art yet, but they're on the way. Oh, hi, Art of Dan. Nice to see you here. Thank you for joining. I'm going to grab that phthalo blue again and add a little bit of water, and I'm going to start putting that in again. And just tapping it in anywhere where I want to add a little bit of darkness, a little bit of variation, maybe to break up some of this cobalt teal color there. Just adding a touch of water with it, just enough so that it flows a little bit, but I don't want it too wet or too dry at this point, or it's going to start causing blooms. And if it's too dry, then the paint from an area where it's too wet is going to bleed into that area. Or if it's too wet, then the same thing will happen. And as you paint and play around with your colors, you'll get to know sort of at what stages, you know, you can add water, take away water. And at some point, if you're getting like a mess and it's not blending nicely like this, just let it completely dry and then add, then you just wet it again, go over top, wet it all again and start over, right? So that's the nice thing with watercolors too. So I'm adding that Prussian blue to the outsides here again, and very little water on my brush. And then I'm going to go ahead and just dip a little bit into my water and grab a tiny bit of my lamp black and just start mixing that in with it to get a darker version of this color. And I'm going to start putting this, and this is going to give us some of that depth that we're looking for in our sky here. You got your new iPhone, the 12 Pro Max. I love the camera. It's awesome. Oh, nice. Oh, that's going to be really nice. Yeah, I have the, what do I have? I have the regular 12, I think. Just getting a little bit more of that lamp black. And I really want to focus that on the outside. And then we can sort of start like moving it in. And I just do like little taps when I'm trying to do this. Little taps to sort of blend the paint. Okay, and I'm going to rinse that off. And I'm going to go back in with that phthalo blue. Maybe a little bit too much water there, so I'm going to tap some off on my brush. And I'm just going to help these edges sort of merge together, like it's messy and unintended and it's going to help bring a little bit of brightness into that transition area too. And you're seeing I'm just really being messy. So it's pushing some of the dark back, putting some of the light in there. And I apologize if I'm not answering too many questions right now, because I do want to do this because before the paint dries too much. Okay, so I'm going to go back in with, I like how the pink is looking, but I'm going to go back in with that cobalt teal and just add just a little bit of tiny brightness back to some of these areas. And now at this stage, because I can see it's drying more here, I am going in with mostly just the paint on the tip of my brush. And I'm even going to start dragging it out into some areas, bring some of that brightness out. And if I notice I'm picking up the darker colors, I'm just going to rinse my brush off again, tap it off, go back in with our cobalt teal, and just really, move the paint around. This is my favorite, one of my favorite things to do with watercolors. Naomi, do you have a video on setting up your watercolor palette? What colors and pigments, etc.? Right now, I think I've got like a vlog that I've done setting up the Mgram palette, actually. That was probably a couple of months ago, tapping off my brush again. But I don't know if I've actually done a dedicated video for that, but basically I just set my palettes up based on brands right now. So I've got an Mgram, I've got Winsor and Newton Professional, Winsor and Newton Cotman, and Daniel Smith. But I am thinking about, because there's certain colors in each brand that I really like over some other ones. So I'm really considering of making like a mixed palette of just my favorite colors. So if I do that, I will definitely make a video on that for sure. So maybe that's something that I need to do then. Again, I'm just really playing around, and you can see because we wet the paper, we've got like so much time to play around with this paint. And that's one nice thing, you know, taking your time with it. Next, painting with oils. Ha, 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 ha. That's a joke, right? Oils are not my friend, apparently. Oils are just not my friend. Okay, so I'm going to go back in with that quinacridone rose just a little bit, and where I can see some of that blue that's bled in, I'm just going to sort of like coax it out of there. So I'm sort of like just blending at the edges just slightly. And if your paint's doing this and it's mixing and you're getting those like feathery veins, that's fine, because once we go over top with the stars anyway, you're not really going to notice that, but I'm just being nitpicky here. And just get a little bit more water, go back in with some of this. I'm just wetting it down just slightly, and maybe too much. So I'm going to tap some of that off. And I'm just going to let it blend. Yeah. Yeah, no, I think oil paints are, I don't know, they're just not made for me. I like to go and like, so the nice thing with this is we don't have to wait until this dries. Like, so I can just keep going, right? Because I can dry it myself. Oil paints, heck no. Heck no. All right, so I don't know. I think I like, you know what? I like how it's making a little bit of a purple too. So I'm going to drag that out just a tiny bit to get some of that purple, because that's actually really pretty how it's blending. Just slightly. And see, you start with an idea and then you go, oh, actually, this is really pretty. So let's, you know, let's do some of this. So I really like that too. Okay. Now I'm going to add just a little bit more of that lamp black, a little bit more Prussian blue, and I'm just going to darken just along the edges just a little bit, and I'm just going to pretty much place it down just slightly, and this has got to be pretty thick at this point because it is starting to dry. So I'm just doing the edges, and that's going to help frame everything in the middle. And then I'm going to rinse this off really well. You're a newbie to watercolors? Yeah, so you probably feel my frustration the way I do like with oil paints. So I'm dabbing that off so that it's really, really dry. There's not really any water on there. And then I'm just going to do the same thing where I lightly blended. I'm going to do it again, just so that there's not so much of a harsh line there. Just bringing that dark in just slightly in some areas, jumping that paint around. But I don't want to bring it in too much and get rid of our nice bright areas that we've got going on. I just want to kind of like mess up that border line, I guess. That's a good way to say it. Okay. So I think I like how that's coming out. There's a little bit of splash of color in there. We've got some blues. So I think at this point I'm going to let it dry. And normally I would let this dry naturally because the paint will still move and spread and mingle a little bit. But for this tutorial's sake, I am going to use a dryer here. And I just got this new heated craft tool, and this is supposed to be like really quiet, so I wanted to try it out on the stream here. So you guys let me know if you can hear it or not. And Art City says, do you have any tips for beginners in watercolor? Like what do you have specifically? I'm gonna dry this, and then you guys let me know if you can still hear me while I'm drying it. Oh, that is really nice and quiet. Can you still hear me over this? And when I'm using a heat tool or a hairdryer or anything like this, I'm not doing it super close to the painting. You want to keep it back a little bit. So maybe like half a foot back or something like that. Okay, yes, you can still hear me. Perfect. So I think my biggest tip for beginner painters, and like EB says, practice, practice, practice. Yeah, I think my biggest tip is water control. So if you can learn water control, then basically any technique or any thing from any other medium you can use with watercolors. So it's basically know to go really wet and when to know to go really dry, and that's basically doing this technique. So if you want to do a lot of like wet and wet, just practicing skies, galaxies, things like that. And so you'll notice like nothing really blended too much because we were sort of thoughtful and careful with how much water we use. So honestly, it's just practicing stuff like that. And so you always want to go from really wet to really dry. That's probably my biggest tip. And then my second biggest tip would be for any kind of art at all, and that would be like your values. So you want to make sure that your lights are light enough, that your darks are dark enough. That's going to help with like making things more realistic. So it really depends what your goals are. If you have any other specific questions, Art City, please let me know. But that's those are basically the big tips that I can get. And paper. Paper's a big one too. So if you're using a cellulose paper like the Canson watercolor paper, that's not 100% cotton paper. This is 100% cotton paper. And that's going to help us because it will soak the water in. So if you go back and watch the beginning of this video, I really took my time to wet the paper, let the water soak in really well, and that gave us that time that I could lay some color down, play with it, lay some more color down, play with it. That makes a big difference too. So the paper, definitely. It's so super quiet, and I actually got this, so I was watching, oh my gosh, Colorfully, I always want to say Colorfully Corey now, but it's Colorfully Optimistic is her YouTube name. And she was streaming and she was using this with watercolor pencils, and it was so quiet. She had a link in her description, and so I ended up using it and getting it, and I really like this. This is so much quieter than anything, than any other tool that I have. So if you're interested in that, go check out her channel and check out her link. Of course, you can just look up Heated Craft Tool. I think this is the Ranger one, so you could just like Google that too. But it's super quiet, so I like how I can answer questions while I'm doing this. All right, thank you. That's very helpful tips. Okay, if you have any other questions, then please feel free to ask. And another thing I'm doing right here now is I'm taking my time to dry this because, as you could see before, even on a block, the paper buckles a little bit. But if you dry it and it's still buckled, it's not dry. So you got to keep drying it until the paper settles flat. The paper will settle down flat, and then you know that it's dry. And I kind of just go over and touch my hand. If it's still a little cool to the touch, it's not dry, but now it's nice and warm. So we'll give it a few minutes there to kind of cool down, because if we put any paint on top of that, it's just going to dry super, super quick. But I kind of like how the background's looking, so I'm going to go ahead and get my palette out of the way here. And so now we're going to go ahead and do some stars in our background. And I'm going to move this over sort of more in the center so you can see it. And let me see, am I still? I got to move things around now. So these are the two gouache that I'm going to use today. I like the Winsor and Newton permanent white gouache, and I also really like the M. Graham lamp black. And this is like so black it covers up anything. So if we do the stars and we get some on where we're going to put our little wolf today, this will cover it up no problem. And now I'm just looking in my brush set here. And I really like using a brush like this for stars because I can flick it really well, and you can get some really good tiny stars, really nice splatters and stuff like that. So that's what we're going to do right now. and then we'll dry again. Then we'll put our wolf down. Oh, well, look at that. This probably isn't super mixed up, but that's all right. This is a new tube, and I probably should have squished it up a little bit before, because some of the binder came out. So depending how light this is, we might have to add a little bit more of that gouache to it. So I'm just going to get my brush wet, and I'm going to add some water into this and mix it up. And we want it to be fairly runny to get the consistency of stars, because if it's not runny, then it's not going to splatter really nicely on our background here. So we want it so where it's going to move a little bit, but not like really drip off of our brush. And this is going to be a little bit messy, so hopefully I've got some paper towel, but basically I just take my finger and I go like this and flick up, and it's going to flick the stars down. The closer to your paper it is, the smaller they're going to be. The further away, the bigger they're going to be. EB says the gouache set is so nice, the primary colors and black and white. Oh, I can't wait to get mine. I just, okay, so it's not flicking so well, so we need more water. So that's one way you're going to notice. So now we're going to flick, and you can see we're getting some. I could probably add a little bit more water, and yes, I am dirtying up my clean water, but that's fine. We don't really need clean water anymore at this point. I can't wait to get my palette full packs. Okay, so here I'm getting a pretty good consistency, so I'm just going to flick and just flick around. And I'm going to get some more and just keep flicking until I've covered the paper. Oh, and there's some bigger drops, so that's all right. We can just wipe those up. No big deal. They'll get covered up. So I had a little bit more, too much water there in the mix. Oh, and there's another big drop, but you know what? That's okay. Maybe there's some big stars in the sky. So I'm getting a little bit of variety with this, and that's okay. I kind of like that. And I am going to, at some spots, I'm going to concentrate some of the flicks because stars and galaxies, they kind of cluster a little bit. So I'm going to pick a few areas where I'm going to add, you know, a little bit more stars than other areas, so they cluster. And I'm holding it back, and I'm putting it close to the paper just to get some variation in my stars. And this is really going to be what makes our galaxy background kind of pop. Yeah, I just got the Hemi 24 gouache set, and I just actually did a picture and a review on it, so that video should be coming out. That should be this Thursday's video. So I kind of did a gouache picture with that. I did a cupcake, I think. Yeah, a cupcake. And I really like that gouache. That's probably my favorite gouache that I've tried so far. So I'm really interested to try the acrylic gouache now. Okay, so I'm liking how this is coming out. This is looking pretty cool. And I really like that pop of pink color in there. I think that was a good idea. Some people might not like it, but I think you gotta have a pop of color. If you guys know me by now, I just like to do my own thing. Okay, so I am going to try to get some of this paint off my hand and not be too messy. And where our ground's going to be down here, I'm just going to go and get that off, but I'm not too worried about the stars here. So I'm going to go ahead and dry this again, because we want our stars to be really dry once we go on top with our gouache to do our wolf, or otherwise they're going to mingle together and you're just going to get like a gray wolf. So again, if you guys have any questions for me, now would be a good time. And some of these gouache stars, because they're little puddles of paint, they are going to take a little bit longer to dry too. So it might take me a minute or two here to get this to be really dry. Oh, that's a good question, Heather. Where do I like to find my reference pictures? So I am a big fan of Pixabay, P-I-X-A, oh gosh, now I have to spell Pixabay, P-I-X-A-B-A-Y, and Unsplash, U-N-S-P-L-A-S-H. Those are royalty-free reference sites. So if you find a picture that you like on there and you want to end up selling your art afterwards, they're royalty-free, so you're free to do that. Other sites like iStock or whatever, stock photos, or even Google, those aren't royalty-free photos. So where I'm doing tutorials like this, and you know, everybody's free to use this photo if they want, and let's say you create this artwork and then somebody's like, I love that, that's beautiful, can I buy it? You are absolutely free to do that. So I really do like those sites for that, and they have a variety of photos on there. There's also a few sites on Facebook. I can't think off the top of my head what they're called, but they're basically like reference-free Facebook groups. And you can also go join those, and you're also free to make artwork, sell it, make prints, whatever, from those sites as well. Just make sure you look at their rules, because I think there's maybe a couple of groups you might have to give credit, but most of them you don't have to give credit to the original photographer. But those are all great options. And even as a beginner, I would say, you know, get your photos from places like that, because you never know down the road if somebody's going to want to buy one of your pieces, you know, 2 years later, somebody just loves it and you've used a Google image. Legally, you can't sell that. So I'm just going to see here. Just going to hit some of these bigger ones just a little bit better. I am really loving this heat tool. This is amazing, and it's drying really quickly too. I was worried because it was a little quiet. Maybe it wasn't going to put out as much air or whatever, but it seems to be doing a wonderful job. Alrighty. So, at the beginning of the video, I showed that I went ahead and sketched out my little wolf here on a separate piece of paper, just so that I didn't have to worry about if my background got too dark and I couldn't see it or whatever. And then I used some graphite paper. So I show that at the beginning of the video, but we're going to go ahead and do it now. So I'm just going to tape this down to this block. It's beautiful, so nice. Thank you so much, EB. Thank you. That's the Ranger heat tool. Yes, it is. Yeah. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to tape it at the top here on either side so that it can't really move back and forth. But I can pick it up like this so I can see if it's transferring or not. And so I showed in the beginning as well, I've got a white graphite paper and a gray graphite paper. So it just depends if your design's a little bit dark, like if you're going over black gouache or something, you're going to want to use the white one. I'm going to try the gray one and see if it's if the design's light enough that we can see it. If not, we'll switch to the white one. And so this side has nothing on it, this side has the graphite on it. And as you can see, I've already used this one, but the nice thing with graphite paper is you can use it for so long. It's, you know, it's really like reusable. So you could use the same piece for months. So once you buy one pack of it, you don't really have to worry too much about it running out or being used up too quickly. So I'm just going to make a couple of lines along here. And you really don't need to press too much with this. And I'm just going to see if it's showing up. I'm going to try pressing a little bit harder. You know what? That's not showing up so much on that, so I am going to switch to the white one. I use the same piece for like 50 artworks. Yeah, you can really get away with using the same piece quite a bit. Oh, you know what? Oh my gosh. I had it the wrong way, I think. Oh, that's fun. That's super fun. I'm a professional, y'all. So you want to make sure you have the graphite side down. So the shiny side down. I think that was my problem. Let's try this again. Because I'm like, why is this not showing up? And I'm just using an embossing tool for this. Yeah. Okay, yep, there we go. Problem solved. So I'm going to get this back on here. You stay. And I'm just going to go ahead and get this little guy down, and then we're going to fill him up with some gouache anyway. Yeah, go ahead. Laugh away. And it's not like I don't use this stuff all the time, so. Thank you, Livestream. I'm just going to double check that's showing up. Yep, that's showing up now. Oh, gosh. Oh, hello, Colorfully Corey. We were just talking about, well, I was just talking about you, actually. I ended up getting that Ranger heat tool from you, and I was just saying that it's amazing. I was using it, and it is so quiet. I can talk right over it. It's like magic. So I was just saying that I used your link in one of your videos to get it. So if people were interested about that, they should go check it out. And then we were struggling with this graphite paper. No, we weren't. Yeah, I love it. I absolutely love it. So I'm just making some little lines, some indications of where this little jagged fur is, but we don't have to be super precise because we can make little fur textures with our brush afterwards. So how is everybody today that's just joining? So this is a holiday here in Canada, and I was working the weekend, so that's why I ended up moving the stream to today. But the next one will be back on Friday as normal. My paper's moving on me, I feel like. Okay. You know, it would be nice if I had Mondays off because then everybody could join. Because sometimes on Sundays, I know a few of us, like me and you, Dan, we tend to stream at the same time. All right, so I'm just checking here that I've got it. I think that's fine. We can work with that. We can wing it. All right, so I'm going to fold this back up so that the graphite's on the inside so I don't get too messy touching it. And I'm just going to get a drink of water. Yes, EB, it is on Amazon. However, when I was looking at some of the listings, now this was on the Canadian Amazon website, it did say that some people were having problems because it came with like a UK plug-in socket, so just be careful of that on Amazon. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and mix up some black gouache now, and I want enough to be able to do the bottom part here and our wolf. And then we'll go in and create some like leaves and little textures and stuff, and then this will be it. So how are you guys liking it so far? Do you like the background, or what colors would you have chose for the background? And if we don't mix up enough of this, we can always mix up some more. It's no big deal. So I'm going to go ahead and use my size 8 for this, and then I'll probably switch to my size 4 to to fill in the wolf part. And I'm going to go for my dirty clean water. This was supposed to be clean, but we've dirtied it up. That always seems to happen when I'm painting. Never fails. It is a holiday in the US, but you're still at work. Oh no. Well, I'm happy that you could join while you're at work, so thank you very much. And I'm just going to go ahead and fill in the bottom. And I want to make sure I have enough water so that the paint spreads around. But if you have too much water in, then you can see it's going to start creating these little textures. And if you have too much water, it might not be thick enough to cover up some of our, what are those called? Stars that we put in. So it's sort of like a back and forth. Is it too thin? Is it too thick? And I'm just going to go ahead and start deciding where I want the edge of this to go. I like it. I'll definitely have to rewatch the first part. Oh, thank you. Yeah, I like how it's turning out so far. I was just going to do like I did with the elk and do the light to the top. But I thought, you know what, let's mix it up and do something different, because you know me, I just do what I want. I work from home and it's slow. My boss doesn't recognize any holiday outside of Thanksgiving and Christmas and only recognizes those because I refuse to work on them. Okay, wow. Wow. Well, I mean, at least you get Thanksgiving and Christmas, but that kind of sucks. Yeah, that sucks. And so depending where your stars are, you might have to do a couple of layers if you've gotten some really thick stars down here, just to cover them over. Well, but that's okay, because this gouache, it dries super matte, so you won't really notice if you have to go over an area a second time and do a second layer. It blends in. Like, let's say I had to go over this section again, but not this section, you won't even notice the difference with this gouache, so I love it for that reason. And EB works, you work at a school. I'm lucky. At least you're home, Corey. Yeah, at least you're home. Although work is still work. But I really appreciate you showing up for the stream, even though you're working. So I do appreciate that. I appreciate all of you guys that show up, because I really enjoy doing these streams. So I hope you guys enjoy watching them as well. Okay. It has its bonuses for sure, but sometimes you wish there was a separation of home and work. Yeah, I could see that. So I'm going to drop down to my size 4 silver black velvet, and I like this one because it's got a really nice fine point. So in the beginning, I was showing the difference between the silver black velvet and the Neptune, and I had both 8s here, but you can see like these ones come to a much more fine point than these ones do. But I still like both types of brushes, so. Oh, you love my streams. Oh, thank you so much, Heather. I so enjoy you guys being here. Okay, so I'm going to try to see where my little wolf is. And I'm just going to get in some of that fur texture. from his tail, and we're just going to start filling him in. You know what? I think I'm going to fill him in, and then we'll go in and create some texture afterwards. Some of those little like flicky furs that are coming out. I work for a content agency and oversees all of the writers, editors, strategists. Wow, that sounds maybe a little stressful. So I need a little bit more water just to get a little bit more flow here as I'm filling in. Now these might be some of the more boring parts, but it's all gonna work out in the end. It's very stressful. Yeah, I could imagine. So I'm just taking my time here, making sure I get these edges right. And that's one thing I love, you know, about these brushes. This is a size 4, but yet its point is so nice. I can really get around and get some really good edges. Loving the artwork. Oh, thank you so much, EB. You guys are so sweet. And I hope you guys try something out like this too. It's so fun. These are like my favorite type of, I just want to play around with watercolor, get some color down. If you guys like this, we could do more silhouette paintings. I can find more, you know, things where we can just do a fun background and then just have something on top of it. And the fun thing with this is you don't have to do this wolf. You could do whatever you want as your silhouette, right? You don't have to do the same background. It's completely up to you. I need to use gouache more. Yes. Yeah. I love my white and black gouache. I will never be without them. Especially with watercolor. But I do have the Himi gouache 24 set review coming out on Thursday. So stay tuned for that one. Okay, so I'm going to start putting in some of these like little fur textures that I see in our wolf just coming off. And I'm just going to make like little flicks coming off of him here. You don't want to go too far over the side, but just enough to create a little bit of texture. This is wonderful. I'm very inspired. I do need some gouache, though I don't have any. Well, if you don't have any gouache, you could still use, you know, black or white watercolor for this. It's not going to show up as well, but at least you've got something that you can play around with, you know, and you can just keep doing some layers, and you'll eventually sort of get somewhat the same effect. It might not be exactly the same, but so I'm just taking the tip of that brush and just making some little like triangle lines coming off of this in some of these areas. I want to try to paint one with a bear. Oh, that would be nice. That would be really nice too. And I'm trying to keep my hand off my artwork as much as possible because some of this gouache is still wet. Oh, that's a little, that one went a little far, so I'm just going to just lightly dab that up. And you know what, that's fine. We'll just make some of this come down just a little bit lower. Maybe he's a full wolf. We'll fill in some of this. He's full from a nice meal that he just had. Or he's a little shaggy. No big deal. I'm just hitting a couple of spots here where I see just a shadow of those stars showing through. Okay, so I think I like how he's turning out. I've seen a few color tubers playing with gouache too, so I think I just need to get some. Yes, gouache is so fun. And it's nice how you can layer up too. I swatched my gouache and that was as far as we got. Yeah. Okay, so I think what I'm going to do while I've got this black gouache going is I think we'll go ahead and do the leaves and stuff now, and then we'll go ahead and do his breath afterwards, because he does have his mouth open, and I know in the reference picture there's no like breath, but like how I did in this one, I sort of added in that breathy area. I think that adds to the piece, so I think we'll go ahead and do something like that too. But I think we're just going to continue on with our black gouache while we have it. Excellent job on the silhouette. Oh, thank you so much, Heather. Thank you. I really appreciate that. All right. So I'm going to stick with my size 4 brush for now, I think. But you could always go down to like one of these liner brushes, and I have these on the side too, just in case I don't like how this size 4 is turning out. You can definitely, you know what, let's do that. We'll do one of our liner brushes. Let's do the Princeton Neptune, just because I've got that one out now, and we can always go back to our size 4 afterwards. So this is going to let you be able to get some really nice thin lines and get some different variation and stuff. and I don't want too much on it, so I always tend to roll off some, because if you have too much, then you're just going to get a thick glob when you go. And we're just going to play around and lay some leaves, some grass in, and you don't want them all going in the same direction. You kind of want to mix it up. You want them to overlap, so I'll do some this direction, some the other direction, some a little bit shorter, some a little bit longer. It just kind of depends. So we're just going to start laying some in, and I just need a little bit more flow on that, so I'm just adding a little bit more water. And you know what, for me, I think I actually prefer my size 4 brush. I don't really use those liner brushes a whole lot. It's kind of funny, that's what they're meant for, but I find this one I get such a nice point with. I don't know, this is just more comfortable for me. So I'm just going to start doing some little flicks, different sizes. Some are a little bit thicker, some are a little bit lighter, and then we'll kind of go back in and start filling in. And you don't have to, you know, fill in all of the areas that you see. You can leave some areas free of grass. And so you see I'm flicking, I'm doing some variation. And depending like how much pressure you're putting on, that's going to give you, maybe we've got some really tall ones coming here. That's really going to give you, so you can practice this on a separate piece of paper too, right? Whoops, and I just threw my brush. And that's how lightly I'm holding on to this. So I'm just really lightly, and I'm letting my wrist do the work. And you guys have no idea how many times that happens. My brush will just go flying out of my hand, and I'm like, what the heck? You guys are seeing it all for real today. All the troubles. So now I'm going to go in, and if I want to do some thicker ones, maybe some longer ones, so I just kind of layer them up where I think we need it. I kind of like how that's looking. And then we can do, you know, some different things, so we can add some thicker ones. I like to go in and kind of do some dots on some of them, so I'll pick like a couple of the thicker ones, and I'll just do like some dots to either side of it. And it's sort of like maybe it's, you know, a piece of lavender, or maybe this one has like a thick edge on it. So I just kind of go in and add some stuff. And this is the fun part. You can leave your grass just like this, or you can go in and add little things to it if you want. You love the smaller brushes, like the liner brush. EB, do you like those? Maybe I've got a thicker one there. And sorry if I'm a little quiet. I'm just concentrating. Your go-tos are a 2, 3, 4, 6. Yeah, I like those too. All right, so I kind of like where that grass is right now. I think I'm liking that. I'm just gonna add a couple little spots in there. Okay. So what I'm gonna do is I am going to go ahead and dry this really well, because what we're gonna do to get the breath is we're gonna lay a little bit of water down first, and I don't want that black gouache to leach into our water. So I'm gonna go ahead and dry it. And if you guys have any questions for me, then please let me know. Since this is so quiet, I can answer questions. I'm still trying to find a brand of brushes that I like. So I started with the Princeton Neptune, and I really liked those. Then I got a size 8 silver black velvet, and it was like a game changer. It's so versatile because it holds so much water and paint, yet it's got such a nice tip. Even with the size 8, like if you see here, like look at that tip compared to this one. Now I know this one's dry, but still there's such a huge difference. So I just find the silver black velvets are a little bit more versatile, and I know they're a little bit more expensive, but I just feel like, you know, even with a size 4, an 8, and a 12, that's really all you need. Like really, and you can get so much done with that. So instead of investing in a bunch of brushes, you can invest in those 3 brushes and it would give you, you know, so much. Now I do like a flat brush when doing stars and stuff in the background. But, you know, that I'm just using, this is just a cheap water brush, and I just liked, you know, it was like the perfect size for me to be able to do that. All right, so I am going to go to my size 8 silver black velvet, and you'll look into the silver black velvets. Yeah, I really like them. That is half the battle, yes. My biggest issue is water. A lot of these brushes aren't holding the water I need. These, like you saw, I pretty much did a lot of this grass, a lot of the background. Like I didn't have to really add too much water to it, but play around, get one, like just invest in one brush maybe and see how you like it. So I'm gonna get my white gouache back on this side, and what I'm gonna do is, I know my water's a little bit dirty here, but that's okay. I don't want too much water on my brush, so I'm just dabbing it off slightly. And I'm gonna go in here and just get this area damp. And I'm gonna start it off small, and as it gets bigger, I'm going to feather it out. Because if you imagine, your breath is gonna kind of feather out a little bit. And I'm gonna have it come down a little bit, come over, and I don't really wanna mess up the background or mess up too much of our stars. But the reason I'm waiting to do this now is because the breath will, you know, go on top of the stars, right? So I want to make sure I bring it up far enough and out far enough. And this is going to help our breath kind of get that like distilled look, like where it's, you know, feathering out. And I'm just going to go in with some of that white gouache, and I'm just going to start tapping it in near his mouth and then pulling it out and just seeing, you know, what happens, how it goes. And I like to do this little tapping motion to kind of help it. Okay, and I'm going to completely get this clean, and then I'm going to tap the brush off so it is super dry, just a little bit damp, and then I'm going to go ahead into some of our edges here and just help them fade out into like nothing. And if I feel like I'm picking up some of that gouache, I'm just going to tap it off again. So it's damp, so it's going to help the paint move a little bit, but it's not too damp that it's you know, going to get that cauliflower effect when you're spreading it out. And if you need to add a little bit water, go ahead. And I think I kind of like that. Oops, that's the dirty water. We'll go for the less dirty water. And then I'm just gonna get a tiny little bit of that and just a little bit more concentrated right in the middle, sort of right at the beginning. And again, I'm just tapping, just helping it blend together. And this is going to give us the imagination that the breath is like disappearing into the sky. The imagination, the impression, whatever. You guys know what I mean, right? Okay, and again, wipe off. And I'm just going to help this blend in with that other layer. And I love doing like the tapping motion with watercolor. That's how I blend a lot of stuff. It works really well for certain things to really tap it in. And it sort of stops it from blending too much too. So, there. I think I like how this little guy is looking. So let me know what you guys think. And this was actually pretty quick. So, I mean, this is the fun thing about these galaxies or little silhouette paintings is we can get them done, you know, almost within an hour. So this was pretty fun to do. So let me know if you guys want to see more of this. There's a bunch of static all of a sudden. Is it just my connection? Is anybody else? Oh no. Is it good now? I hear it too. I don't hear it now. Loving it. Oh, thank you so much, EB. Yes, please. Like, yes, please do more of these type of paintings. Because I certainly can. These are some of my favorites to do. You just get to play around with some color. You can do, you know, pretty much whatever you want. I still hear it, but the picture is awesome. What kind of static is it? Like, I don't hear anything here. I think everything's connected okay. Is it just static noise, or is it anything to do with the picture? It's so weird. I hear it a little bit. Did you guys just start hearing it, or have you been hearing it all along? Nothing with the picture. Okay. Just like a mic isn't plugged in all the way sound. Well, I'm pretty sure everything is plugged in. It just started. Okay, I'm going to have to watch this back and see exactly what it is, but I think that's it for today. So unless you guys have any last questions, oh, I did want to mention, so for the next tutorial, it will be next Sunday at 10 a.m. Atlantic Standard Time again. And I did get some requests for some watercolor pencil art, so I was thinking that's what we would do. Not too long, okay. Well, we'll go ahead and wrap this up anyway, but I was thinking it might be fun to do like a watercolor pencil landscape. I'm not a very good landscape artist, but if you guys are willing, we'll tackle it together and see how it goes. Yay, watercolor pencils. Yeah, and I'll kind of show you how I break it down into parts, and we'll kind of see how it comes out. Awesome. Looking forward to seeing it. Yes, watercolor pencils. Okay, perfect. Watercolor pencils. Yeah, I think it was Shadow that had mentioned it in a comment on one of our pastel tutorials. So I kind of put it in the queue for the next one. Where can we get the reference material early? So I always usually try to put up the videos by like Wednesday, Thursday. I will have it up. So it should show, if you go to like my channel page, it should show upcoming live streams. And then if you click on the live stream and go down into the description, I'll have the I'll have any traceable, if there's any kind of traceable there. I will have the reference photo. I will have, if I've gotten some of my pencils together that I'm planning to use, or whatever materials, I should have all that information in there. So if you want to get your sketch ready to go, your paper, your materials, I try to do that. So expect it out about Wednesday or Thursday. And then as we're going, I might always add, you know, some colors or whatever to it, but I'll try to have the basic stuff for you guys ready. All right. So I think that's it for today. Thank you guys so much for joining, and thank my moderators so much. Thank you so much, EB and Colorfully Optimistic. Check out their channels. They both have channels here. They both stream and do live streams and videos. So yeah, make sure to check them out, and I will see you guys next Sunday, 10 a.m. Atlantic Standard Time. And yeah, I think that's it. Thank you guys so much. Have a wonderful day. And I have a video coming out too of the Jelly Gouache Himimia set on Thursday, so make sure you see that as well. Bye guys.